Most people already know INFJs are the rarest personality type. But here's the thing, not all INFJs are created equal. Some carry an edge that sets them apart, an almost untouchable energy that blends INFJ depth with Sigma independence. These are the Sigma INFJs. In today's video, I'll reveal 10 controversial signs that you're not just any INFJ, but a Sigma INFJ. Trust me, if more than a few of these resonate, you're on a whole different level. Let's dive in. First off, you're both a lone wolf and a people magnet. Sigma INFJs are living paradoxes. On one hand, they crave solitude more than anything else. They need silence, space, and independence to recharge their energy. But on the other hand, they carry an aura that draws people in without them even trying. It's almost unfair. While they may be sitting quietly in the corner, people notice them, feel curious about them, and are drawn to their presence. This is not about being loud, flashy, or extroverted. Sigma INFJs attract because of their calm energy, their depth, and their mysterious self-possession. People sense that there's something different about them, something they can't quite put into words. That quiet self-assurance works like a magnet, pulling others closer even while the Sigma INFJ is secretly craving to be left alone. Here's the viral twist. Most people chase attention. They dress a certain way, act a certain way, or perform just to be noticed. But Sigma INFJs, they do the exact opposite. They avoid attention, and that's exactly why they get it. It's the irony of charisma. The less they try, the stronger it becomes. From a psychological perspective, this works because people are naturally intrigued by mystery. When someone doesn't overshare, when they hold back instead of competing for the spotlight, it creates tension. It makes others wonder, what's going on in their mind? That unanswered question is what makes Sigma INFJs unforgettable. So while the typical INFJ may seek out meaningful relationships, the Sigma INFJ lives in a paradox. They long for solitude, yet people chase them. They want freedom, yet they're constantly followed. It's both a gift and a curse, and it's one of the clearest signs you're not just an INFJ, but a Sigma INFJ. And next up, your empathy comes with detachment. Regular INFJs are known for their deep emotional absorption. They walk into a room and instantly feel the energy, the tension, the hidden sadness or joy. But Sigma INFJs take this one step further. And this is where things get controversial. They don't just absorb emotions, they also know how to detach from them. They can feel someone's pain in the moment, offer understanding that feels almost supernatural, and then step back without carrying that emotional weight. This detachment is not coldness. It's a conscious boundary that gives Sigma INFJs an advantage most people don't have. While others get consumed by emotional drama or guilt, the Sigma INFJ can stand firmly in their center. They know how to empathize without being trapped. They can sit with your storm, understand it, and still walk away untouched by the lightning. This ability makes Sigma INFJs almost impossible to manipulate. Guilt trips don't work. Emotional blackmail doesn't land. They see through the tactics instantly because they feel the emotion but don't let it anchor into their soul. And that makes them untouchable in a world where so many people rely on emotional pressure to get their way. Psychologically, this is rare. Most empaths drown in the emotions they pick up. Sigma INFJs learn to swim. They master the art of balance, tuning into the emotional frequency of others while keeping their own channel clear. That's why people often describe them as both deeply caring and strangely unshakable. It feels contradictory, but it's their secret strength. So if you've ever noticed that you can feel someone's deepest emotions, yet still walk away calm, collected, and grounded, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Empathy combined with unbreakable detachment. And thirdly, you question authority, even spiritual or moral ones. Typical INFJs often seek higher guidance. They might look to religion, tradition, or respected leaders to help shape their values. But Sigma INFJs, they break the mold completely. They question everything. Political systems, cultural norms, religious beliefs, and even moral codes that most people accept without hesitation. To them, nothing is sacred just because society says it should be. This doesn't mean they're rebellious for the sake of rebellion. It's deeper than that. Sigma INFJs see through illusions. They recognize how authority can be used to control, how belief systems can limit growth, and how traditions can be followed blindly without true understanding. They refuse to accept any idea unless it resonates with their own inner truth. That makes them both liberating and intimidating to the people around them. This mindset turns Sigma INFJs into both visionaries and outcasts. To some, they're courageous free thinkers who inspire change. To others, they're dangerous questioners who disrupt order. They don't fit neatly into any box, and that unsettles people who rely on rules and hierarchy to feel secure. Psychologically, this trait reflects the Sigma INFJ's independence of mind. While others conform for safety, they thrive on creating their own path, even if it means walking alone. They're not afraid to burn bridges with outdated beliefs or challenge authority figures who expect blind loyalty. This intellectual independence is what makes them both misunderstood and deeply respected. So, if you've ever found yourself doubting rules that everyone else follows, or rejecting authority even when it costs you comfort, that's not just an INFJ trait. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ, the truth seeker who refuses to kneel to anything but their own authentic vision. Fourth on the list, you don't want to lead, yet people follow. Sigma INFJs are not the kind of people who chase leadership roles. In fact, they often avoid the spotlight altogether. They value freedom, independence, and the ability to move on their own terms. The idea of managing others, dealing with group politics, or being tied down to authority isn't appealing to them. And yet, here's the paradox. People naturally follow them anyway. Why does this happen? It's because Sigma INFJs radiate a quiet authority that doesn't need to be spoken. They don't bark orders or demand respect, but their presence communicates strength, clarity, and stability. In groups, others instinctively look to them for direction, not because they're loud, but because they're calm, decisive, and unshaken when everyone else is uncertain. Their independence inspires confidence, and people are drawn to follow those who don't seem to need followers in the first place. The Sigma INFJ becomes a leader without trying, and that makes them more powerful than those who actively seek control. Traditional leaders rise because they want authority. Sigma INFJs rise because their energy commands it. That difference is what makes their influence so unique, and often more lasting. From a psychological perspective, this stems from the Sigma INFJ's deep self-trust. They move according to their own compass, not the crowd's expectations. And in a world where most people are desperate for validation, that kind of authenticity is magnetic. People can't help but gravitate toward someone who doesn't need approval to know their worth. So if you've ever noticed that people follow your lead even when you didn't ask for it, or that you end up in leadership roles you never wanted, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. The reluctant leader, whose power lies in never needing power at all. All right, fifthly, you have a love-hate relationship with people. Most INFJs are known for their longing for deep, meaningful connections. They crave intimacy, understanding, and relationships that go beyond the surface. But Sigma INFJs add a twist to this. They have a love-hate relationship with people. One moment, they can be incredibly giving, open, and devoted to someone. The next moment, they can vanish without warning, shutting the door completely. Why? Because people both fascinate and exhaust them. Sigma INFJs are intrigued by human nature, psychology, and the complexity of emotions. They can connect with someone's soul in a way that feels life-changing. But at the same time, they also recognize how draining people can be, how much energy it takes to constantly engage, support, and empathize. When that balance tips, their need for freedom takes over, and they'll retreat without hesitation. This duality shocks people. To someone who experiences the warmth of a Sigma INFJ, the sudden withdrawal can feel cold, or even cruel. But the truth is, it's not about the other person. It's about self-preservation. Sigma INFJs know when they've given too much, and instead of waiting until they're completely drained, they cut ties or retreat into solitude. Psychologically, this comes from the Sigma INFJ's sharp awareness of energy. They notice subtle shifts in dynamics that others miss, manipulation, neediness, or dependency. And once they sense it, they distance themselves. They don't see relationships as permanent obligations. They see them as living connections that should remain balanced. So if you've ever found yourself deeply attached to someone and then suddenly pulling away, not out of spite, but out of necessity, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Someone who loves intensely, but refuses to sacrifice their freedom or energy in the process. Sixthly, your morality is self-made, not inherited. Most INFJs are guided by a sense of shared values. They often look to family, community, or collective traditions to shape their understanding of right and wrong. But Sigma INFJs don't play by those rules. Their morality is entirely self-made. They don't inherit beliefs simply because that's how it's always been. Instead, they dissect every principle, every expectation, and every standard until they find a version of truth that feels authentic to them. This is what makes them controversial. To society, someone who refuses to conform to the collective moral code can be seen as dangerous or unpredictable. But for Sigma INFJs, following someone else's definition of good feels like betrayal to their soul. They live by an inner compass they've crafted through experience, observation, and reflection. It's a compass that's often misunderstood, but it's one they trust more than any external authority. This means a Sigma INFJ might openly reject beliefs that entire communities consider sacred. They might walk away from traditions, religions, or social rules without a second thought. And people who depend on conformity find that threatening. The Sigma INFJ doesn't follow rules just to fit in. They follow principles that align with their unique sense of justice, even if it isolates them. From a psychological perspective, this is the hallmark of moral independence. While most people seek external validation for their choices, Sigma INFJs act from an unshakable inner conviction. They are less concerned with how things are supposed to be and more focused on whether something feels deeply true to them. That's why others can't easily predict or control their behavior. They answer only to their own code. So if you've ever found yourself breaking away from traditions, questioning inherited beliefs, or living by a personal ethic that no one else seems to understand, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Seventhly, you're mysterious even to other INFJs. INFJs already carry a reputation for being mysterious. They're layered, complex, and hard to fully read. But Sigma INFJs take this mystery to an entirely different level. Even people who pride themselves on understanding INFJs often admit that the Sigma version feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. They reveal fragments of themselves, but never the whole picture, leaving even their closest allies wondering what's really going on beneath the surface. This isn't about being deceptive. It's intentional. Sigma INFJs understand the value of privacy and the power of keeping certain truths to themselves. They choose what to share, when to share it, and with whom. That sense of controlled disclosure gives them a level of mystique that's both intriguing and unsettling. People are naturally drawn to mystery, and Sigma INFJs know how to use that to their advantage. Even when someone thinks they know everything about a Sigma INFJ, there's always another hidden layer. It could be a passion, a belief, or a side of their personality they've never revealed. This unpredictability keeps people hooked, because the Sigma INFJ is never fully solved. They're a story that never ends, a book that keeps writing itself. Psychologically, this comes from their intense inner world. They process thoughts, emotions, and experiences on such a deep level that it's impossible to communicate all of it. So instead of trying, they let most of it remain private. By doing this, they protect their energy and maintain control over how others perceive them. So if you've ever noticed that people describe you as an enigma, or if you intentionally keep parts of yourself hidden even from those you love, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Someone whose mystery isn't just natural, but carefully cultivated as part of who they are. Eighthly, you're obsessed with freedom above all else. For many INFJs, deep connection is at the heart of their identity. They crave love, loyalty, and emotional intimacy. But Sigma INFJs operate on a different wavelength. Above love, above belonging, and above approval, they place one thing higher than anything else: freedom. Their independence isn't just a preference, it's a non-negotiable. This obsession with freedom can show up in every part of their lives. In relationships, they won't tolerate control or manipulation. In careers, they struggle with rigid structures and rules that stifle their creativity. In life, they avoid commitments that feel like cages. To the Sigma INFJ, being trapped in a situation that limits their authentic self feels like suffocation. They'd rather walk away from comfort, security, or even love than lose their ability to move freely. This is why Sigma INFJs are often labeled as unreachable. People want to tie them down, define them, or claim them, but the harder someone tries, the more they pull away. Their love comes with an unspoken condition: accept me as I am, or I'd rather be alone. That kind of raw independence is both magnetic and intimidating, because so few people have the strength to live that way. Psychologically, this stems from their awareness of how easily control can slip into relationships and systems. They've likely experienced moments in life where they felt restricted, and they made a vow never to let it happen again. That vow becomes a core part of their identity. Their sense of peace doesn't come from others. It comes from knowing they're free to choose their own path, no matter the cost. So if you've ever chosen solitude over security, or walked away from opportunities that most people would cling to, not because you couldn't handle them, but because they threatened your independence, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Someone who would sacrifice almost anything, even love, for the sake of freedom. Ninthly, you play the outsider even when inside. Sigma INFJs have a unique way of existing in groups. On the surface, they can fit in easily. They can laugh, contribute, and even charm an entire room if they choose to. But mentally, they're never fully part of the group. They always keep a piece of themselves on the outside, quietly observing instead of completely merging in. It's like they're living in two realities at once: the participant and the observer. This dual perspective gives them an edge. While everyone else is caught up in the flow of conversation or group dynamics, the Sigma INFJ notices the unspoken things, the subtle power shifts, the hidden insecurities, the unacknowledged tensions. They can read between the lines because they're not fully absorbed into the collective energy. They're in it, but not of it. This outsider mindset is both a gift and a curse. On one hand, it makes Sigma INFJs incredibly perceptive, almost like social detectives who can see what others miss. On the other hand, it can leave them feeling like they never truly belong anywhere. Even in groups where they're accepted and admired, there's still that nagging sense of distance, like they're watching life happen rather than living it with everyone else. Psychologically, this comes from their strong individuality. They don't lose themselves in groups the way others might, because their identity is rooted in their inner world, not external validation. That detachment keeps them self-aware, but it also reinforces their role as the outsider. They're close enough to connect, but far enough to stay untouchable. So if you've ever felt like you're in the room, but not really of the room, blending in yet standing apart, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ, someone destined to live both inside and outside the circle at the same time. Last but not least, your silence is louder than words. Most INFJs are known for their thoughtful communication and deep insights, but Sigma INFJs take a different approach. They know when silence is more powerful than speech. They don't always rush to explain themselves, they don't argue endlessly, and they don't need to fill the air with words. Their silence speaks volumes, and often, it speaks louder than anything they could say. This is what makes them so disarming in conflict. While others get louder, the Sigma INFJ grows quieter. That calm, unshaken presence unsettles people because it forces them to confront themselves instead of focusing on the argument. A simple pause, a steady look, or a refusal to engage can shift the entire dynamic in a way no clever comeback ever could. In a world obsessed with being heard, Sigma INFJs command attention without even speaking. People lean in when they're quiet, curious about what they're thinking. That mysterious energy creates an aura of authority, and it makes others realize that the Sigma INFJ doesn't need to explain themselves to be understood. Their silence demands respect. Psychologically, this comes from their confidence in their inner world. They don't rely on external validation or endless justification because they already know where they stand. Their silence is not weakness, it's strategy. By choosing when to speak and when to withhold, they control the flow of interactions in ways most people never notice. So if you've ever found that people pay more attention to you when you say less, or if your silence has ended arguments faster than your words ever could, that's not just being an INFJ. That's the mark of a Sigma INFJ. Someone whose power isn't in how loudly they speak, but in how strongly their presence resonates without a single word. And there you have it, the 10 signs that reveal you might not just be an INFJ, but a Sigma INFJ. Now I want to hear from you. Do you recognize yourself in these traits? Or do you think the whole idea of a Sigma INFJ is overrated? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to see where you stand. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.